Very cool. Sully, how many more people are you expecting? Do you want to wait for anybody else?
I contact a lot of people, a lot of
Okay.
them so replied, but I see no participant. Okay, I think this is all now. We can start.
Okay. And no rush either. I'm fine if you want to wait a couple more minutes.
Okay. No, we can start. Okay. Hi guys, thank you for tuning in. Our first meeting will be with special presenters, the manager of SolidWorks user group network. Hi Dan, nice to meet you.
Thanks for the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Also, we have Ahmed Nasser, the SWUGN committee leader of Africa and MENA region. Nice to have you, Ahmed.
Hello, Sarah. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Our topic today will be about the user group program and its benefit, as it is our first meeting introducing the program. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Use the chat or raise your hand. Okay, without further ado, let's start the meeting. Stop the share.
Cool. Did you want me to go first?
Yes, I think.
You can, Dan. You can.
Okay. Awesome. So, Sully, thanks for the invite and congratulations on the new group. And as always, it's great to work with AHMED as well to get these new groups up and running. So, I'll show my screen here real quick. And I think a lot of AHMED, you may have seen some of this before and might be familiar with it, but it's just good to review. Oh, you know what? So you need to, I can't share screen. I think that's a setting in Zoom for participants to be able to share screen.
Sorry for that.
That's okay. No problem.
Okay. You have the.
Try this. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Awesome. I'll share with sound too, just in case we need sound. Okay. So can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes, obvious.
Awesome. All right. So I actually I did this same exact presentation as we said before at about 2:30 this morning my time for another group in Uganda, brand new group in Uganda, and it went really well, and it's just kind of a good overview of where SWUGN is right now and some of the things we have going on. But this is also super informal, so if anybody has any questions, anything you want to dive into, whether you're new to SWUGN or if you're Ahmed or Yahya, maybe you're already familiar with SWUGN, you've already been here for a bit, right? So no worries, ask any questions, and we'll keep this certainly informal. I want to start though with a historical recap, and I think this might be kind of a fun little exercise. And the reason for this is SolidWorks is a very different company in 2023 than it was in 1995 when it started, right? The very first SolidWorks release, the very first version of SolidWorks, all the way in 1995 on Windows. And it's interesting because some things are still the same, right? Like your boss extrude, your cut extrude, and your simple stuff like that. There's things that are pretty much still the same as they were when they came out, but quite a lot has changed and quite a lot has been added over the years. So this is a good quiz, maybe. What do you guys think was the first thing to be added? The first add-in or the first, called an add-in or add-on that was added? Good pop quiz. I'll put the chat over here in case anybody answers.
Draft site?
Draft site. It's a good guess. Yeah. It's not draft site, but that's a good guess.
I think simulation.
Simulation's close. That is close. Sully, that's in the top 3, I think. But Ahmed, any guesses before I tell you? Hey, I have to give credit.
I think I need to make a revision for SolidWorks portfolio before, but I think We can make a guess like composer.
Not composer. I'll give a shout out to Muhammad in the chat. He said toolbox, and he's right. So the first thing to be added in 2000 was toolbox, which is kind of cool. And you guys had some good guesses after that. 2001 was simulation, so not too far from there. 2003 was flow sim, which is pretty cool. Like we started tacking on these additional packages, and then PDM in 2006, and then it was kind of like everything else after that. Everything else was added after that. But there's so many really powerful tools in SolidWorks, right? From the simulation tools to data management. Composer is one, Ahmed, you just mentioned is really powerful. Yeah, I think you said draft site, which is really cool, right? It's hard. You forget sometimes how many things were added over the years because there's just so much in the package now. But kind of like a little known fact is SolidWorks was acquired by DS in '97, like prior to all of this, before any of this happened. So I'm telling this story mostly to say that where we are today is very different from where we were in '95. And it's really thanks to Dassault. It's all the resources and all of the energy that Dassault put into SolidWorks over the years is the reason we're able to keep tacking on functionality and keep improving the software. Because as you see it today, everything is Dassault, right? You see this little DS logo next to SolidWorks, like it's very much Dassault Systems, SolidWorks. And a lot of what we show and a lot of the tools that we use day to day are now very much Dassault connected tools. I did another presentation earlier this week for a school here in Pennsylvania, pretty close to me in the United States. And I used this version of SolidWorks. It looks and feels exactly like the version that everybody knows. This is an old data set. If you've ever seen this one before, pretty old Mitersol data set. But this is the connected version. So this is SolidWorks Connected Professional. And that little word, like that little word in the middle there, is the only real difference that you see when you kind of first look at this interface. And that means that this version is connected to the cloud. So when I'm using this version, I'm not logged in on this one. When I'm using this version, I can actually save and store all this data directly to our Dassault Systems cloud and instead of on a PDM system. And there's a lot to unpack there. There's a whole lot of details to cover there. But the point is we're starting and I think we're still at the ground level of this. Like we're really starting to see this one cohesive relationship between SolidWorks and the rest of the platform, the rest of Dassault Systems. It's kind of cool too to look at Dassault's history because yeah, SolidWorks came out in '95, but Dassault was doing 3D design in the '80s, like 80, 81. That's older than me. That's like 40 years of over 40 years of 3D design from Dassault. And they had the first real full digital mock-up of an entire plane in the late '80s. So CATIA and all the other really powerful tools of Dassault kind of paved the way for all the stuff that we know and love in SolidWorks. And this is cool too, to look at the history of Dassault and history of the companies that Dassault has purchased over the years and tacked on things like SolidWorks, right? The very first purchase, but then Abacus, super high-end, super capable simulation software, Abacus. And more recently, Medidata. So Medidata was purchased in 2019, and lo and behold, COVID hits in 2020, and Medidata is the #1 used software for clinical trials, for medical clinical trials. So weird timing, right? It worked out for Dassault, weirdly. Isn't a good thing overall, right? But in a weird way, this Medidata purchase in 2019 was Dassault's first step into the biomedical tech industry, and it really has worked out well so far. So we do this kind of like history lesson, right? Just because I think especially for a brand new user group to know what you're a part of, you're not only part of your group, but you're part of this community, you're part of SolidWorks, and really you're part of Dassault, like this much bigger, this huge entity that is Dassault Systems and all those tools. Okay, so again, any questions along the way, feel free to stop me here or throw a question in the chat. But another thing we do this weekly with our user group leaders. We do this weekly in onboarding when we're onboarding new leaders, is we review the mission statement and talk about what SWUGN is all about. Because if we're doing an intro to SWUGN, and if you're new to the network, if you're attending this meeting here for the first time, and this is the ground floor for this brand new group, the mission of SWUGN, of the SOLIDWORKS User Group Network, is to empower people who use SolidWorks products to collect. You should be able to connect with us anytime, anywhere, on any device, in-depth technician face-to-face networking. So SWUGN is all about obviously what we're doing here, right? We're networking, we're loosely covering some technical topics, but in the future, right, this group's just getting off the ground. In the future, you're going to have technical presentations, presenters talking about different aspects of SolidWorks, different products within the SolidWorks family. That's all in line with this mission statement. And this is pretty cool. In the background, we see some images. Ahmed, I think this is from Egypt, right? The big meeting you guys had in Alexandria, I think, in Egypt. There's a virtual meeting here in Sudan. There's another meeting here in Nigeria. I know it's hard to see, but this is Theodore and Nikhil doing a virtual meeting between Greece and India. There's Armenia, there's India here. This is Boston, this is the UK, and this is a virtual PDM SWUG. And I know they're all hard to see, but the point is, when I look at all these meetings, it's one common language and it's one common goal across all of these groups. So a user group meeting in Egypt looks a whole lot like a user group meeting in Boston, right? They're very similar in mission, and they're very similar in just the appearance and the atmosphere, right? So looking at the team, I think it's important to know who the community team is here at SolidWorks that's supporting you. And this is not just for Sully, not just for the group leader, but really for the entire group. So Suzanne Locke is the director of community and user advocacy here at SolidWorks. And I'm on Suzanne's team. I've been managing SWUGN for about 2.5 years. And prior to this, I worked at a reseller for about 13 years doing SolidWorks tech support and SolidWorks training classes. And also on the team working with user groups is Taylor Norcross. So Taylor helps with boarding, helps with reimbursements, kind of day-to-day issues with SWUGN. We also have Anna Manfredonia, but Anna's been out for a little while, so you might not interact with Anna as much. And I think it's also important to know that we have other community programs besides SWUGN. So you're here to learn about this new user group, but there's also the SolidWorks Champions program, and that's run by Matt Clegg. So if I just pull that over here and we look at SolidWorks Champions program, this is more of an individual level program, and it's actually closed right now, and Matt's getting ready to reopen the new members. But if you want to contribute at the individual level and kind of be in a attended SolidWorks World or 3D Experience World, have certain certifications, contribute to the community, overall champions, right, for SolidWorks, this is the place to be. And you can do both, right? You can be a user group leader, a user group member, or a SolidWorks champion, right? They all overlap, and they're great communities to be a part of. We also have Matt Hall, who handles our digital communities. So as a new user group member, our digital communities include the SolidWorks user forum. The forum is free. Like, it's a totally free space that anybody can visit. So if I go here to visit the forum, and the forum, by the way, I went kind of the long way, but it's just forum.solidworks.com. And I'll drop this in the chat too. I'm going to share this again later in the presentation, but I'll kind of do it now just for conversation's sake. But the forum is a space where you can see questions from other SolidWorks users all over the world, and then also post your own questions. If you have something you need help with or something you can't figure out, like this guy is posting questions about welding simulation and nobody's answered it yet. This is from just a couple hours ago. So this is a great place to collaborate with and chat with other SOLIDWORKS users. So question in the chat from Hussein here, do we have any activities in Saudi Arabia, or are there groups in Saudi Arabia? Ahmed, maybe I'll let you answer that one. That's a good question. Or Sully. I'll pull up the map too.
We have
So right now that
we have two listeners here, but no groups until now. The first one is Jeddah.
Yeah, for sure. So as Sully just mentioned, this is really the only activity we have in Saudi Arabia, right? This is our first user group in Saudi Arabia, and that's why we're pretty pumped about it. We'll share that as well. I think everybody has this if you ended up in this meeting, but I'll share that in the chat also. Cool. Okay, so digital communities, just finishing that thought, the forums is a great place to contribute. So not only SWUGN, the user group network, what we're here to talk about today, but you can be a SOLIDWORKS champion. You can participate in digital communities. Matt Clegg also manages something called the Influencers program. Influencers program means any SOLIDWORKS YouTube, any engineering YouTube channel. I'll use Brad Thompson, for example. Brad Thompson runs a really cool YouTube channel where he just designs crazy stuff, mostly these really cool looking armor suits. And then he makes them all himself and builds some pretty cool things to go along with it. And we will get Brad to feature SOLIDWORKS in his videos, right? We're kind of paying for advertising. We're kind of paying for promotion. He's got over 1 million subscribers, and this is a cool place to do it. So he was at 3D Experience World. Oh, I gotta wait for an ad. Oh, how horrible. He was at 3D Experience World. There's Matt Clegg, for example. And Brad and one of his buddies made a video about attending 3D Experience World. Look at these ads. Unbelievable. I guess I don't pay for YouTube Premium. Here we go. So I'll skip the trial. So I'll share this in the chat too. But so this whole program, it takes management, right? Like working with Brad, working with Exosapien. We work with Titans of CNC, Mavens of Manufacturing is another podcast we support. The Core podcast, Kirby and Johnny. These are all really great community level things. Again, just getting familiar with a user group that you could participate in. And I can share some of those again as well. Oh, awesome. I didn't realize, Silly, you had a YouTube channel. That's awesome. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about last year and really just talk about where we are for this year. Numbers wise, there was over 300 known user groups at the end of last year with 30,000 members that held over 500 meetups. Like, this is a meetup, what we're doing right now. And last year was, again, a pretty crazy year in terms of user groups. And we onboarded 71 new groups, with 47 of those being outside of North America. And that's important to me, to look at the map and know that we're not only getting new groups in North America, but we're also adding groups like this in parts of the world where we don't have any user groups. So I think this is great. And so far this year, we've already onboarded 15 new groups in 2023. So we're still growing like crazy, and we're having a blast, honestly. So this is just great to see this growth across the network. I've already kind of visited this a little bit, but a resource I refer back to quite often is this SWUGN map. So this is solidworks.com/SWUGN map. I'll put this, what we'll do is I'll visit this, then I'll copy the URL into the chat here. So this is a map we visit. I was showing this, of course, the JEDDAH group here before, but this is a map that we made just to make it a little bit easier to find all the user groups. I, for example, live pretty close to Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. So I know that my local group is this Mid-Atlantic region independent SolidWorks user group, and this is Jeff Holliday's group. So it's important, I think, for anybody to be able to open this map and just know where all the closest groups to you are, especially if you're traveling. If you're traveling and maybe you want to find a group near you. Ahmed, you mentioned you're going to make a Saudi Arabia trip pretty soon.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
easy. Yeah, that's cool. So you could just pull the map up, right, and find. I know you know Salih already, but I'm using you as an example. You find the next meeting and find that group's contact info. So I will drop this in the chat too. I'm pasting a lot of links here, everybody. I'm sorry for all the links, but they're all useful. I made this slide too, just really not so everybody remembers these, right? But just more to highlight, these were all the new groups we onboarded last year, and this is in order, in reverse order, I guess, from the end of the year. And you just see the country column, right? We were all over the place, which is awesome. Like this is what we want, is to get new groups, but get them all over the globe, all over the place. A lot of new groups in India, a lot of new groups in US, of course, in Mexico. Ahmed has helped us so much with new groups in Africa and other places, of course, like Saudi Arabia as well. It's very cool. As a new group member, I think it's also really helpful to know what are the other groups that you can be involved with, because yes, you want to be involved with your local group, which might be this one, but there's other groups you could take advantage of. For example, SimSwug or PDM Swug. So SimSwug, I'll jump back to this map. I know is based in Wisconsin here in Madison, but SimSwug is a user group that's dedicated to simulation. It's dedicated to FEA. So not only can you be a member of the JEDDAH SWUG, but you can also be a member of this group, of the simulation group, and attend these meetings. This is a gentleman named Didi. I will not try to pronounce his actual name, but he says to call him Didi. So that's what I do. And he's awesome. He's a super nice guy, and he's a really talented engineer at GE in Wisconsin, and he runs this simulation group. So just again, another really awesome group to stay connected with. He's got 500 members. So I'll drop that group in the chat. There's another group that focuses just on PDM. PDM is not as exciting as simulation or other products, but when you start working at a company that uses SolidWorks, and you know this already, that if you have an assembly of parts, the relationship between those files is really important. Where they're stored, what their names are, what their connections are, all of that is what makes up a SolidWorks assembly. Well, once you get into a company and there's a lot of SolidWorks users, that gets complicated really quickly. People saving files on top of each other, renaming files, deleting files. So that's where PDM comes in. PDM helps organize all of that, product data management. And this group is devoted specifically to PDM, to only PDM. We also have groups focused on education. Ahmed, we see Mansoura University on this slide, right? So we have groups that are focused or developed inside of schools. I mentioned this before, but I visited on Monday a school here in Pennsylvania, and I did a presentation for them live. And same thing, it's a user group that's based within a school, inside of a school. And I think that's, again, a really great place for a user group to exist. We also create groups inside of large companies. So a couple of examples here between NIWIC and NAPHIDE here in the US, but probably an even better example is Altec. Altec is a big company that designs and builds these basically rigs for trucks. They're all sorts of different equipment, aerial devices, diggers, spraying equipment, all sorts of different specialty truck bodies that add on to the back of a truck. And they use SolidWorks to do all of this. A lot of sheet metal, a lot of weldments, and a lot of users. They have like 500 plus SolidWorks users at this company, like a lot of SolidWorks users. So we've started Altech user groups inside of Altech that only Altech employees can join and can be a part of. So when we get back here, I think about all these different types of groups we have. We have traditional groups, which this this JEDDAH group is a traditional group, right? Then we have groups based in schools. We have groups based in large companies. We have, I was back here a second ago. We have groups based on topics, on simulation, on PDM, on technical documentation. We have a composer based group, for example. So we have these great groups all over the place. And I think as a brand new person to SWUGN, or even someone who's been here for a while, it's just good to know all of these extra resources, all of these extra things you can be a part of. All right, so that's major accounts. Another thing that, of course, took place this year is a conference called 3D Experience World. So if anybody out there went to this, let me know in the chat. I think a couple of you were there virtually. I don't know if anybody was there physically, but this event was awesome. So we were there physically in Nashville back in February, and we had about 4,000 people that turned up physically, and then we had like 10,000 people that were there virtually that were watching remotely. For me, this was a really powerful event because we were in Nashville in 2020, and then COVID hit, and it took 3 years to get back there. We were back in person 3 years later in 3D Experience World. So again, if you're, what's the power of SWUGN? What introduction to the community type stuff? This event is something to pay a lot of attention to, because if you can be there in person, obviously that's really powerful. But even to attend it virtually and watch any of it virtually, there's so much to gain from that. If I go back to the SolidWorks YouTube channel, all of those sessions, I'll share this in the chat too. This is a bit easier to find. Yeah, Hussein, that happens yearly. So we do the 3D Experience World Conference every year. I have another slide showing you where the next year is. We'll get to that in just a second, but you can go back and watch these sessions. So for example, this was day 3, and Matt Clegg and I were on main stage giving out some awards. So we did the Michelle Pillars Community Award for SWUGN. And then we did the Wayne Tiffany User Group Leader of the Year Award as well. And it was awesome to be able to do that in person. And just kind of getting back, like Matt and I got a chance to talk about how big the SWUGN program is, how big the Champions program is. And to do that in front of 4,000 people and many more watching remotely was, again, really powerful and just an awesome experience. So you can go back and watch all of that content. All of those sessions are on the YouTube channel, and all of the individual I'll do the public one here. All of the individual technical sessions are also available. So if I go to SolidWorks News and Info, and I'll just show you where we can find this right now. SolidWorks News and Info, which again is a totally free community that anybody can access. Anybody is welcome to join. 3D Experience World February 13, 14, and 15 sessions are all here. So if I pick this one, for example, I can download and watch back this. This is free training, right? All of this is free SolidWorks training, about 300 sessions that you can go back and watch for free. These are all entirely free. So what I'll do is go back to this community, and maybe I'll get a link. I told you, Celia, I'm going to share a lot of links in the chat. I hope that's okay. Everybody can just copy these out and save them somewhere. So sorry about that. But this is the News and Info community where, again, you can read back all or watch back all of those presentations. So to Hussein's question in the chat, the next event is February 11 through 14 in Dallas, Texas, next year. So that's in 2024. And we've actually already created these letters. So if you want to go, and obviously you have to pay for travel costs on your own, but if you want to go to this event, attend it in the US, you can start requesting your visa now. I know in parts of the world that takes a long time, but we have these letters which we can provide to you and basically provide as an invite. Ahmed, I hope to see you there next year, and Yaya, I know as well would be awesome, hopefully. So something else worth mentioning, and this isn't totally relevant because it's not available yet in most, honestly, most parts of the world. But if we look at this list here, we have this version of SOLIDWORKS called 3D Experience SolidWorks for Makers. And it's available in these countries currently, but more countries will be added. We're working every day to get more countries added to this list. But 3D Experience SolidWorks for Makers, I'll pull this up so you can kind of see what this looks like, is a version of SolidWorks, a version for the maker out there, right? Someone who just wants to tinker around with SolidWorks at home. It's $9.99 a month or $99 for the year. And there is certain requirements. Like if you scroll down to the bottom, you can read through these frequently asked questions. There's limits on it. So anybody who's not turning a profit, really, you're making less than $2,000 a year on your designs, you can use this version just as kind of like your testing version or your mess around version of SolidWorks, right? This is a pretty good solution for that. It's, again, not yet available in Saudi Arabia, but I believe we're working on adding a lot more countries to this within the coming year. We also had a really great event last year called SLUGME 7. And again, for someone just getting familiar with the network and figuring out what are some things that you should pay attention to, this event is awesome. This is a yearly event called SolidWorks largest user group meeting ever. That's what SLUGME stands for. And last year we did this big live stream, some really awesome projects, and we had over 4,000 people watching on YouTube. And it was viewed in 52 countries. So you can actually still go back and rewatch all of this content. This version is still up on the SolidWorks YouTube channel that you can go back and rewatch. But we're also getting ready to announce SLUGME 8. So SLUGME 8 is coming September 2023. We're working on details. I actually have a big meeting today to finalize some details and continue brainstorming on this project. But this is a really great event that a lot of people get involved in. Ahmed, you were involved with SLUGME 7 last year, which was great. And we want to see some great things come together for trying to figure out what to pay attention to in this network and being connected with SolidWorks users. SLUGME is definitely one of the best ways to do that. Slides here. What's next for SWUGN? What are some other things you want to know about? Working on large, just encourage members to get in person. Hopefully an event in the UK. Working on a Caribbean regional, which is like a Spanish-speaking region here, just south of the U.S. Egyptian regional, and I were talking about a couple great ideas for getting a big meeting together in Egypt, and much more too. Hopefully, we'll see many more of those meetings come together. And again, the more the merrier. Hopefully, we can get a lot of those meetings scheduled. We're starting a lot of prep for 3D Experience World 2024 in Dallas. And then there's another big event everybody should know about called Iron SWUG. So Iron SWUG, if I jump out to this website real quickly, on this motorcycle road show. It's pretty cool. They ride 2 motorcycles across the US and they visit a user meeting every day. So this summer in June, they'll be traveling from North Carolina to Virginia to Philadelphia, where I live, to Albany, New York, and then they're going to finish in Waltham at SolidWorks headquarters. So we're going to have a pretty awesome series of events this week, and that's just ironswug.com. So I'll drop that in the chat too. But those are all going to be live streamed, so you can watch back all of this content remotely. And again, it's just training. It's free SolidWorks training. There's at least 10 sessions here. There's 2 sessions every day. Brad and Adam both do one, and it's free SolidWorks training every day, all different presentations throughout the week. So that should be pretty cool. And finally, what else can you do to get involved? We already talked about this before, but the forums is something that I'm really encouraging everybody to just spend a bit of time here on the SOLIDWORKS user forum, and not only read through questions that people are posting, but try to answer if you think you have some good feedback, or post your own questions. If you have something that you're kind of running into, don't hesitate to put it here. Of course, you have a reseller probably, right? You can reach out to your reseller and ask them, but this is free and it's a great place to connect with other SOLIDWORKS users and try to get some additional feedback. Okay, and I think that's it. So Sully, I'll pause there. Any questions or anything else anybody was wondering? All right, cool. Well, thank you guys. This was great. I really appreciated the time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. To be honest, I really appreciate the website, the last website that you opened. Always, when I have any question, I just wrote it there. I should sign in, and I
Cool.
always find the questions that I'm looking for. So thank you for this website, and
Great.
thank you for everything.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for your time. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'm gonna hang out for a few minutes here. I have to sign off in about 10 minutes, but I'm hanging out too, if that's okay.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
Cool.
Okay, I think that is all. Thank you, Dan, for your time, and Ahmed.
Hi, Saleh. Thanks, Dan, for this grateful presentation. I think it's a rich one, and you talked about everything for SWUGN and the benefits and the history of SolidWorks and the SO system itself. I think because we are presenting for Saudi Arabia, maybe I can complete the presentation in Arabic. Yeah, to be sure that everyone has all the information they need to
Great.
know. السلام عليكم. في البداية يعني حابب أرحب بيكم.
I'm gonna sign off as well, Ahmed.
Okay.
Only because I won't be any help in Arabic at all. So
Okay. As I say always, Dan, for all the meetings I have, we all speak SolidWorks language.
Yes, we do.
We maybe we speak different languages, but we all reverse to the SolidWorks language.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
Sully, Ahmed, everybody, thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks. أعتقد دان كان وضح أكثر الأمور اللي تهم سوليد ووركس ايفنتس، ولكن أنا سعيد جدا إن بدأ يكون في جروبس داخل السعودية، وإن شاء الله هيكون في توسع بشكل أكبر في المدن الخاصة بالسعودية زي الرياض قريب إن شاء الله. الجروب الخاص بالسعودية أو الجروب اللي احنا فيه دلوقتي في جروب جدة خاص بإيفنت سوليد ووركس، وبيكون والليدر حاليا هو صالح. فصالح مسؤول عن إن هو يجمع أكبر عدد من المستخدمين للسوليد ووركس، ويبدأ إن ينشر فورم أو سيرفي بحيث يجمع المتطلبات المطلوبة من اليوزرز، بحيث إن احنا نقدر نوفرها للجروب نفسه، بحيث ان الجروب هدفه ان الناس تشرح لبعض النقاط المهمه، او كل حد متميز في حاجه معينه يبدا ان هو يشرحها، او لو الحاجه دي مش متوفره داخل الجروب نفسه، نقدر نوفر موظفين من داخل سوليد ووركس يشرحوا الامور دي كلها، ونوفر بريزنترز يشرحوا اي توبيك مطلوب داخل سوليد ووركس. بالاضافه كمان ان احنا بنخطط لايفنت اوف لاين او ان بيرسون في السعوديه ان شاء الله خلال الشهر اللي جاي او الشهرين اللي جايين بالكتير، بحيث ان احنا نتقابل كلنا في السعوديه. والبنفيتس الخاصه بالجروب اكثرها هي ان احنا نتعلم اكتر من بعض ونستفيد اكتر من بعض، بحيث انا لما هشرح توبيك معين فانا هشرح توبيك انا قوي جدا فيه، وصالح هيشرح التوبيك اللي هو قوي جدا فيه، فبنجمع المعلومات الهامة كلها مع بعض. ده بالنسبة للجروب. ثانيا الريكوجنيشن، طبعا ان احنا كيوزرز مع بعض كلنا احيانا بيحصل معاك مشاكل في استخدام سوليد ووركس. تقدر ان انت من خلال ميت اب جروب او لينكد ان، لو في بيج لينكد ان، لو في فيسبوك جروب، ايا يكن وسيله التواصل الخاصه بالجروب، تقدر ان انت تعرض المشكله. نقدر ان احنا نعمل ميت اب شهري نعرض فيه لو في مشاكل او كويستشنز خاصه خاصه بالشغل الخاص بيا او حاجه خاصه بيا بسوليد ووركس، نقدر ان احنا نحل المواضيع مع بعض. فهو الهدف من الجروب ان احنا ننجيج سوا في ونعمل كوميونتي خاصه بسوليد ووركس. لو في اي سؤال، لو في اي حاجه حابين نتعلمها، اي اضافه حابين نضيفها للبرنامج، نقدر نتواصل بشكل مباشر مع السبورت الخاص بسوليد ووركس. نقدر ان احنا نضيف او نعدل حاجه في سوليد ووركس لو احنا حابين. وبيكون على التوازي معانا الريسيلرز الخاصين بالسوليد ووركس داخل كل بلد زي في السعوديه. يعني ان شاء الله هيكون في ايفنت كبير يعني يجمعنا بالريسيلر ويجمعنا ككوميونتي لسوليد ووركس. تقريبا ده الهدف الرئيسي اللي انا كنت حابب اوضحه، وده لاول مره بيحصل في السعوديه. فاحنا حابين ان احنا نقدم السبورت الكامل والدعم الكامل في السعوديه، بحيث ان ده بيحصل لاول مره. وطبعا ده غير ان في هدايا بشكل بسيط هتوصل لصالح ان هو يبدا يوزعها خلال الايفنتس الخاصه بالجروب. وكمان زي ما دان وضح ان في سوليد ووركس فور ميكرز اوفر. الاوفر ده بيبقى ب $99 سنويا او ب $10 شهريا. صالح هيكون معاه 3 اكسس ان هو يوزعهم بشكل فري، يختار هو الحد من الحضور ويوزع اشتراك سنوي، ثلاث اشتراكات سنوية مجانا للحضور. بالإضافة كمان لأن مع كل ايفنت بيحصل صالح ليه اكسس إن هو يوزع $25 فاوتشر كارد، يقدر إن هو يوزعهم بشكل مجاني برضو على أي حد من الحضور كمسابقة أو كده. بالظبط، هو غير متاح في السعودية حتى الآن كسبورت، لكن تقدر تستخدمه بشكل كامل. يعني في حالة إن أنا بستخدم سوليد وركس فور ميكرز وبستخدمه حاليا، فأنا ماليش سبورت يقدر إن هو يقدم لي دعم في حالة حصل معايا مشكلة أو كده، لكن هو يعمل في السعودية بشكل منتظم يعني. فتقدر إن أنت تستخدمه عادي يا حسين. ولكن حته السبورت هو اللي ما زال لسه ما نزلش فيها من ناحيه داسو سيستمز، لكنه بيعمل بشكل كويس يعني في السعوديه حتى الان. كل الاحتياج لنتورك ستيبل، يعني إن النت يكون قوي وبس خلاص. يعمل باذن الله. وصالح تقدر تتواصل مع صالح لو حابب ان انت تجرب سوليد وركس في ميكرز، يقدر ان هو يقدم لك اشتراك سنوي مجانا، تقدر ان انت تستخدمه وتجرب البلاتفورم نفسها. ده كده بشكل يعني يعني مختصر الهدف من الجروب. والهدف طبعا هيوضح اكتر واكتر لما نتشارك مع بعض الفترة، ونقدم ايفنتس قوية ومفيدة في نفس الوقت. ولما يكون في اكتر من جروب داخل السعوديه بنبدا ان احنا نتواصل مع بعض وبنتشارك العلم مع بعض. وكمان لان احنا يعني في اكتيفيتيز كتير بنخطط لها في السعوديه بما اننا اصبح لنا تواجد كجروب هناك. فكل الاكتيفيتيز اللي كانت بتحصل خارج السعوديه هنبدا ان احنا نوفرها في السعوديه في الفتره القادمه تباعا. واي سؤال او اي اقتراح حد حابب يوضحه يقدر يبعته لصالح ويبعته لنا على طول بشكل مباشر، ونقدر ان احنا نقدم الدعم الكامل لكل مستخدمين سوليد وركس في السعوديه ان شاء الله.
سوليد
انا
ووركس
مش حابب اطول عليكم.
ميكرز، قصدك
ايه،
سوليد ووركس كونكتد. ايوه
سوليد وركس فور ميكرز،
حسين.
سوليد وركس فور ميكرز انكلودed سوليد وركس كونكتد فيه.
ايوه حسين، بالمناسبه السوليد ووركس شغال في السعوديه، بس زي ما قال احمد هو غير متوفر من ناحيه دعم تقني، يعني ما حيقدر حيدعمك، لكن موجود. انا نزلته وشغال عندي، ان شاء الله بتواصل معك في الخاص.
تمام، انا مش حابب اطول اكتر من كده في الايفنت النهارده. اعتقد كل المعلومات ال- الخاصه بالجروب متاحه الان. وان شاء الله نجتمع تاني. اتمنى الاجتماع اللي جاي يكون اوفلاين، واكون معاكم ان شاء الله قريب، ونعمل تكنيكال سيشنز تبعا للي انتم محتاجينه. يعني انا حابب برضو يا صالح تبدا ان انت تجمع المتطلبات بتاعه اليوزرز داخل الجروب، من حيث التوبكس اللي حابين انها تكون متاحه في الفتره اللي جايه بتتقدم للجروب بشكل خاص. سواء ادفانسد توبكس او ايا كان نوع التوبك الموجود، نقدر ان احنا نوفر بريزنترز، ونقدر نوفر كمان امبلويز من داخل سوليد وركس نفسها يقدموا او الار ان دي تيم مثلا ان هم يقدموا السيشنز دي في حاله ان ما فيش حد متوفر من الجروب نفسه. وان شاء الله نجتمع ونلتقي على خير. وشكرا جدا لحضوركم النهارده، واتمنى تكونوا استفدتوا من فكره سوليد وركس يوزر جروب. وان شاء الله نعمل ايفنتس اكتر الفتره القادمه يعني في السعوديه باذن الله. ورمضان مبارك عليكم جميعا، وجمعة مباركة كمان بإذن الله.
جميل جدا،
تسلم،
جزاك
الله
الله خير.
يحفظك. شكرا لك وشكرا للمهندس صالح وللجميع، وبإذن الله أنه تكون بداية كويسة وشيء يفيد الجميع بإذن الله. شكرا لكم، يعطيكم العافية.
شاكرين لحضورك
شكرا
حسين.
جدا.
شاكرين لك يا احمد، جزاك الله خير. كان اجتماع غني بالمعلومات. ان شاء الله نتلاقى دائما في اجتماعات اكثر ومنتظمه
إن
واوف
شاء
لاين
الله،
باذن الله.
إن
مبارك
شاء
عليك
الله،
الشهر
إن
الكريم.
شاء الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.